Have you ever wondered how many times a person can start over? Not just changing jobs, not moving to a different neighborhood. I mean, packing your life into a couple of suitcases, getting on a plane, arriving in a country where you don't know anyone, don't speak the language, don't understand the culture, and somehow building a life there. Over the years, I've done that several times. I was born in South Africa. After finishing my studies, I moved to Germany to continue studying, and then back to South Africa, then Austria, then China, then Hungary, back to South Africa, and then to Mexico, where I've been living the last 14 years, except for 2 years that I went back to China and another 2 years that I spent in India. And looking back, I realized that much of my life has been about adaptation, learning new cultures, learning new ways of thinking, learning how to communicate with people who see the world differently. And every country taught me something. When I first arrived in Germany, I thought I was going there to learn engineering. What I didn't expect was how much I would learn about people. The reason for that is I was part of a class of about 22 students, of which I think 5 were German, and the rest were all foreigners. They came from all over the world. Chile, Argentina, Japan, Uganda, Brazil, what else was there? I said Japan already. China. So this was quite a mix of different cultures, different languages, and for a young South African, it was an eye-opening experience. You know, suddenly I was surrounded by people who had completely different backgrounds, beliefs, cultures, and ways of seeing the world. And at first it was exciting. Then it became challenging, because you quickly realize that what seems normal to you is not necessarily normal to someone else. What one culture sees as direct communication, another may see as rude. What one culture sees as respectful, another may not understand at all. So Germany taught me something I still carry with me today: perspective. It taught me that there are many ways to see the world. And once you've seen the world through the eyes of people from 10 different countries, your mind changes. And then came China. China challenged me in a completely different way. The biggest challenge wasn't the work, it was communication. And as Westerners, we're often very direct. We ask a question, we get an answer, we make a decision, and we move on. But I remember sitting in meetings in China feeling completely lost, because someone would ask a question, one person would answer, then another, and several minutes later, they would arrive at a conclusion. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking, we already answered the question 5 minutes ago. At least that's what I thought. But over time, I realized something important. They weren't simply exchanging information, they were building understanding, adding context, adding relationships, making sure everybody understood not only the answer, but the meaning behind the answer. So China taught me patience. It taught me that communication is not about transmitting information, it's about creating understanding. And that's a lesson I've carried with me ever since. Then there was India. India is difficult to describe. You really have to experience it. So growing up in South Africa, I was familiar with the Indian community, but living in India was something entirely different. I remember stepping off the plane, the noise, the colors, the traffic, the energy, the sheer number of people. Everything felt more intense. And as a Westerner, it can feel overwhelming at first. The roads seem chaotic. People appear to move in different directions at once. And the pace of life feels completely different. But after a while, I began to see something else. What initially looked like chaos had its own kind of order. People adapted, people cooperated, people somehow found a way to make things work. What fascinated me most wasn't the traffic or the food, it was the role spirituality and religion played in everyday life. In many Western countries, religion is something that happens on weekends. And in India, it felt woven into daily life. Even in workplaces, there were occasions where work would pause and everybody would gather for a puja or a religious ceremony. And then India introduced me to different questions. Not how do we become more successful, but what gives life meaning. I didn't leave India with answers, but I left with better questions. And sometimes better questions are more valuable than answers. I'll talk more about India in a future video because it had a bigger influence on my life than I realized at that time. And then there is Mexico. Mexico became something more than another country. It became home. I've lived here now for 14 years. It's where I got married. It's where I became a father. And becoming a father later in life changed me in ways I never expected. Today my daughter is almost 6 years old. I'm 57. Most men my age are becoming grandparents. I was learning how to change diapers, and becoming a father gave me a very different perspective on what matters. When you're younger, success often means achievement. Career, money, goals, status. But when you have a young child later in life, you become much more aware of time. You realize that afternoons matter, the conversations matter, the memories matter, and you start thinking less about what you're accumulating and more about what you're leaving behind. And perhaps the biggest lesson all these countries taught me, life isn't about arriving somewhere, it's about becoming someone. Every country changed me a little. Every culture expanded my perspective. Every challenge forced me to adapt. And every reinvention taught me that we are more capable of change than we believe. Today, at 57, I'm still learning, still growing, still creating, still dreaming. And that's really what Creator of Dreams is about. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about continuing to grow into who you can become, no matter your age, no matter your circumstances, no matter where you're starting from. Because your future is not determined by your past. It's determined by your willingness to learn, adapt, and create again. Thank you for spending this time with me and watching this video. If any part of the story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your own experiences in the comments. And until next time, keep learning, keep creating, and keep dreaming. Thank you.